On the lonely planet of Varian 9, the night was never quiet. The wind always whispered like ghosts through the metal walls of the human outpost. Inside the base, Ethan Cole, a human engineer, sat alone at his desk fixing a broken oxygen filter. He had been alone for 8 months. No calls, no visitors, just the sound of machines breathing around him. He liked silence. Or maybe he had just learned to live with it. Until that night, a strange explosion ripped through the desert outside. Not a meteor, not a storm, but something sharp and alive. The lights in the base flickered. Alarms began to scream. Ethan grabbed his plasma torch and ran to the airlock. Through the thick glass window, he saw something falling from the sky, a silver glow spinning and burning. It crashed not far from the ridge. For a moment, the desert was quiet again. Then a pulse of blue light flashed across the sand. Ethan's heart raced. What the hell was that? He muttered. He slipped on his helmet, opened the outer gate, and stepped into the cold wind. Red dust rose around his boots. The wreck was half buried in sand, a small pod shaped like a tear, metal melted by re-entry. He climbed closer, feeling the heat coming off the hull. The pod door hissed open suddenly, making him jump back. A weak voice came from inside. "Help, please." Ethan froze. The voice was soft but strange, musical, almost echoing. He peered inside and saw her, a girl, or something close to one. She had silver blue skin, faintly glowing veins, and long white hair tangled around her shoulders. Her eyes were bright like moons, and when they blinked, they shimmered with shifting colors. She was bleeding from her arm, blue liquid dripping onto the metal floor. "Don't move," Ethan said quickly, kneeling beside her. "You're hurt." Her hand shot out suddenly, grabbing his wrist. Her skin felt hot like living electricity. Her lips trembled, and she whispered something that made him freeze. "Let's make a baby, human." Ethan blinked. "What?" Her eyes met his. "They're coming. I need you." Then she fainted. He stared at her, speechless. What kind of first words were those? He looked around. The desert was still, but in the distance he saw flashes in the sky. Ships, maybe. Whoever they were close. He lifted her gently, surprised at how light she felt, and carried her back to the base. The moment he stepped inside, the door sealed behind him with a hiss. He laid her on the medical table. Her body temperature was dropping fast. He activated the med scanner. It flickered, showing strange readings, dual DNA patterns, something unknown mixing with humanoid traits. He injected a stabilizer into her arm. Her breathing slowed but steadied. Ethan sat back, running a hand through his hair. "Great. I just rescued a glowing alien woman who wants to make a baby?" He muttered. Maybe isolation finally broke me. He turned toward the window again. In the far distance, bright trails cut through the night, ships entering the atmosphere. Whoever chased her was now heading this way. Suddenly, the girl gasped awake. Her eyes opened wide, glowing brighter than before. "You shouldn't have helped me," she said weakly. Ethan frowned. "You were dying." "What was I supposed to do?" "They'll track me here. They'll kill you too." She tried to sit up, but her body trembled. "Then you better tell me who they are," Ethan said, crossing his arms. She looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether to trust him. Then slowly she whispered, "I am Marinia, daughter of the last fertile line of Varea. My people are dying. Our queens can no longer bear life. Only humans can fix that. That's why I came." Ethan's heart pounded. "Fix that, you mean?" "That's why you said—" "Yes," she interrupted. "Our council calls it the human solution. But I refuse their control. They want to use you, not love you. They sent hunters to catch me. If they find me, they will take your body and erase you." Ethan stared at her, trying to understand. "You mean your people are sterile? And they think humans can—" Before he could finish, an explosion rocked the ground again. The base shook violently. The alarms blared red. Arenia's eyes widened. "They found us." Ethan grabbed his plasma rifle, checking its charge. He looked at her, still weak but determined. "Then you'd better stay alive," he said, loading the weapon. "Because I want answers." Through the window, bright blue lights appeared over the dunes. Alien ships descending fast, dust clouds rising under their thrusters. And as Ethan stood there, the strange alien girl beside him, one thought echoed in his mind. This night on Varian 9 was the beginning of something far bigger than survival. The alarm lights painted the metal walls red as the base shook again. Ethan looked at the radar. 3 unidentified ships were landing half a mile away. The sensors picked up heavy armor and weapon signatures. Whoever these people were, they weren't coming to talk. Arinya was sitting weakly on the medical bed, clutching her arm where the blue blood had stopped flowing. Her glowing eyes followed the radar screen with fear. "They found me faster than I thought," she said softly. Ethan checked his plasma rifle and looked back at her. "You better start explaining before they blast through my door." She looked down ashamed. "My people, the Varians, are dying. We were once a great empire that created life through design, not nature. We modified our genes, made ourselves perfect, no sickness, no weakness." Her voice broke slightly. "But we also destroyed something. Something we didn't understand. What was that?" Ethan asked, his voice calm but tense. "Fertility," she whispered. "Our race can no longer create new life. The wombs of our women became empty, and the seeds of our men turned to dust. We tried everything. Cloning, energy infusion, genetic rebirth. Nothing worked. Until a scientist found something shocking." Ethan frowned. "Human DNA." Arinya nodded slowly. "Yes, human cells carried something ancient, chaotic, unpredictable, but alive. Something that could restart our bloodline. So the High Council decided to capture humans and use them as breeders. They called it the Human Program." Ethan's face hardened. "So you ran from them?" She nodded again, tears shimmering in her eyes. "They wanted me to lead the first experiment. They said I was lucky, that I would be the first mother of the new Varia. But I couldn't do it, Ethan. I didn't want to be a machine for breeding. I wanted choice." Her voice trembled, filled with quiet pain. Ethan didn't know what to say. Outside, the radar beeped again. The ships were moving closer. He grabbed a small case from the corner and began packing emergency supplies. "Then we can't stay here. They'll be at the door any minute." Arinya tried to stand, her legs shaking. "Where can we go?" "There's an old mining tunnel beneath the ridge," Ethan said. "It connects to the canyon line. We can use it to hide until I figure out a plan." She nodded weakly, trusting him completely. As he helped her to her feet, she stumbled and caught his shoulder. Her touch burned slightly, warm, electric. Ethan felt his heartbeat quicken but forced himself to focus. They left the base through the maintenance hatch. The night air outside was cold and sharp. In the distance, 3 dark shapes descended from the sky. Alien ships with glowing blue wings and humming engines. Searchlights swept across the sand like hungry eyes. They ran. The desert stretched endlessly around them. Crimson dunes glowing under the twin moons. Arinya's bare feet left faint blue prints on the sand, glowing for a few seconds before fading away. "They can track energy signatures," she said between breaths. "We must move faster." Ethan pointed to a rocky ridge ahead. "The tunnel's under that cliff. Once we get inside, they'll lose our signal." Just as they reached the rocks, a bright beam of blue light shot past them, exploding the sand nearby. The blast threw them both to the ground. Ethan grabbed Arinya and pulled her behind a large boulder. "They're already scanning us," he shouted. Arinya closed her eyes. The markings on her arms began to glow brighter, and a shimmering field appeared around them and like rippling water. The air buzzed with energy. The next beam hit the ground near them but stopped, bending away like light against glass. Ethan stared in disbelief. What did you just do?" She breathed heavily. "Light bending, a gift of my bloodline, but I can't hold it long." They crawled into the shadow of the ridge and found a hidden entrance covered by rocks. Ethan kicked it open and helped her inside. The tunnel was dark and smelled of dust and old metal. As they walked deeper, the only sound was their breathing and the distant thunder of engines above. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "Why me, Arinya? Out of all humans, why did you come here?" She looked at him, her glowing eyes soft. "Because you are different. The Council chose soldiers and generals before. They died. You're an engineer, a builder. Your DNA shows high adaptation rates and emotional stability. You can change things. Maybe even save us." Ethan shook his head. "I'm just a man fixing machines," she smiled faintly. "And yet you fixed me." For a moment, the tension between them softened. The air was still. Then a small device on her wrist began to beep, a soft, rhythmic pulse. Arinya froze. Ethan frowned. "What is that?" Her face turned pale. "A tracker. It must have activated when I used my power. They'll find us again?" Ethan clenched his jaw. "Then we keep moving." He looked into the tunnel's darkness and raised his weapon. The light of his torch cut a narrow path ahead. The sound of engines grew louder above, and as they disappeared deeper underground, Arena whispered, "You don't understand, Ethan. They don't just want to catch me. They want you." The tunnel twisted deep beneath the surface, dark and endless. Ethan's boots scraped against the stone as he led the way, his flashlight beam cutting through the dust. Behind him, Arena moved silently, her faint glow lighting the walls like liquid silver. The echo of distant engines rumbled above them, alien dropships sweeping the desert searching. Every sound felt too loud. Every breath felt like it could give them away. "Keep moving," Ethan whispered. "If we reach the exit at the canyon, we can lose them." Arena nodded, but her steps were slowing. "I can feel them," she murmured. "They're scanners. They're minds. They are close." Ethan stopped. "They can sense you?" She looked up, eyes glowing brighter. "They are bound to me. I share their bloodline. They can feel my life force like a spark in the dark." Ethan cursed softly. "Then we'll just have to run faster." They reached a narrow section of the tunnel where the roof had collapsed. Ethan started clearing rocks with his hands, dust coating his gloves. Arena helped, though her hands trembled from exhaustion. After several minutes of scraping and lifting, they squeezed through a gap and stepped into the open night again. The twin moons hung high, painting the dunes in silver and red. The air was dry and thin. Far in the distance, 3 blue lights floated across the horizon, the alien search ships. Ethan pointed to the north. "That way. There's a dry riverbed ahead. If we follow it, it'll lead to my rover station." They began running again, their feet sinking into the soft sand. The cold wind bit at their faces. Arena stumbled once, catching herself on his arm. "Humans," she said between gasps. "You are not built for our sons. Yet you endure." Ethan smirked. "We've been surviving worse things than this since the Stone Age." Behind them, a deep humming filled the air. The ships were closing in. Bright searchlights swept across the dunes, cutting the darkness like knives. "Down!" Ethan shouted, grabbing her hand and pulling her behind a sand ridge. The beam passed just over their heads. They crawled forward slowly. Above them, the alien ships circled, sleek manta-shaped machines glowing with blue fire. One dropped lower, releasing a group of drones that scattered like insects, scanning the surface with red lasers. Arena pressed her palms into the sand, closing her eyes. "I can confuse their sensors," she whispered, "but it will drain me." "Do it," Ethan said. "We don't have time." Her skin began to shimmer again, threads of light crawling across her arms. The air vibrated softly. For a moment, the sand around them rippled, creating a mirage, their forms bending, blending into the desert. The drones passed overhead. Their lasers flickered uncertainly, scanning empty dunes. After a tense few seconds, they flew off in the wrong direction. Ethan exhaled, relief washing over him. That was incredible. Arena smiled faintly, but then she swayed. Ethan caught her just before she collapsed. "Hey, stay with me," he said softly. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I just need to rest." He lifted her in his arms and started walking again. The sand was heavier now, the wind stronger. In the distance, a faint structure appeared, a rusted station half buried in the dunes, its antenna broken. "That's it," Ethan said. "My rover base." He carried her inside and set her down on a bench. The small outpost was old but secure. He closed the metal door and powered up the generator. The lights flickered to life, dim and yellow. Arena opened her eyes weakly. "You shouldn't help me. If they capture you, they will take everything from you. Your mind, your body, your memories." Ethan crouched beside her. "Too late for warnings. You came crashing out of the sky asking to make a baby, remember?" He smiled slightly, trying to lighten the mood. To his surprise, she smiled back. A small, tired smile. "You are strange, human. You joke when death is near." He shrugged. "It's how we stay sane." Suddenly, the radar on his console began to beep rapidly. The screen lit up, multiple signatures closing in fast. Arena sat up sharply. "They've locked on again." Ethan looked out the window. Blue lights were descending from the sky, sand swirling beneath them. He turned to her. "You said they could track your life force. What if we block it?" She blinked. "Block it?" He grabbed a heavy metal case and opened it. Inside were radiation shields, old experimental suits. These were designed for deep space mining. "If we wrap you in this alloy, it might hide your signal." She hesitated, then nodded. "Do it." Ethan quickly covered her in the silver suit. The glow from her skin dimmed. The radar suddenly went blank. He grinned. "It's working." But then, outside, a voice echoed through the radio. Deep, mechanical, and cold. "Arena of Varea, we know the human is with you. Surrender now, or we will burn this world." Arena's eyes widened. "That voice. It's the commander. He will not stop." Ethan loaded his plasma rifle, the reflection of the alien lights glinting in his eyes. "Then neither will I." The outpost door shook as something heavy landed outside. The sand roared. And for the first time, Arena realized this human wasn't running anymore. The metal door rattled under the force of the blast. Sand and smoke filled the air as Ethan braced himself, rifle in hand. The night outside burned blue. The alien dropships had landed. Their engines hummed like thunder. Arena sat up, still weak but alert. "He's here," she whispered. "Commander Vorth. My father's chosen enforcer." Ethan glanced back at her. "Great. And what does this guy want?" She looked down. "To drag me back home, and kill anyone who stands between us." The door exploded inward. The shockwave threw Ethan across the room. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Through the smoke, dark figures stepped in. Tall, armored aliens with glowing blue eyes and curved weapons that hissed like fire. Their leader entered last, towering above the rest. Commander Vorth, his armor marked with silver veins that pulsed like living metal. He looked directly at Arena. "Daughter of Varea," he said coldly, "your rebellion ends now." Arena stood shakily, the metallic suit glinting under the light. "I'm not your property," she said, voice trembling but fierce. "You can't make us slaves to the Council's experiments." Vorth raised a clawed hand. "You speak of freedom, yet you doom your kind to extinction. Your emotions blind you, child." Ethan stepped between them, aiming his rifle. She said no. "I think that's all the language you need." The soldiers raised their weapons. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the room exploded in chaos. Plasma fire filled the air. Ethan ducked behind a console, returning shots that sparked off the enemy's armor. Arena threw up her hands. A glowing shield flared around her, blocking several blasts. "Ethan, we must leave," she shouted. "I'm working on it." He fired again, hitting one alien square in the chest. The creature fell with a screech, its armor smoking. But Vorth was fast, too fast. He moved through the gunfire like a shadow, disarming Ethan with a single strike that sent his rifle flying across the floor. Ethan staggered back, dazed. Vorth's hand wrapped around his throat, lifting him off the ground effortlessly. "Human filth," the commander hissed. "You think your fragile body is worthy of her bloodline?" Arena's voice cracked. "Stop it, please." "Your compassion weakens you," Vorth growled. "He is nothing." Arena's power flared again. Blue light burst from her palms, striking Vorth in the chest. He staggered back, dropping Ethan, but his armor absorbed most of the energy. He laughed, the sound echoing like metal tearing. Ethan coughed, grabbing his side. "You know," he rasped, "for an alien commander, you talk too much." He lunged toward the nearby console and hit a red switch, the emergency blast shutters. Metal plates slammed down between them and the soldiers, cutting the room in half. "Come on," he shouted. He grabbed Arena's hand, pulling her through the back corridor toward the maintenance shaft. But before they could reach it, the wall behind them exploded. The force threw them both to the ground. Through the smoke, Vorth emerged again, unharmed. His voice was calm, deadly. You cannot hide from us. Arinya pushed herself up. Then you'll have to kill us both. Vorth raised his weapon. If I must. But before he could fire, one of his soldiers spoke up through the comms. Commander, the Council requests the human alive. They want him for testing. Vorth's hand froze in midair. His eyes flicked to Ethan. So, the High Council sees value in you. How interesting. Ethan glared. I'm not your experiment. Vorth's smile was thin and cruel. You already are. He moved faster than Ethan could react. A flash of blue light hit Ethan square in the chest. A stun pulse. His body went numb. The world spun. He collapsed, vision blurring. The last thing he saw was Arinya's face, tears glowing like crystals as she screamed his name. Then, darkness. When Ethan woke, his head throbbed. He was chained to a wall inside a sleek alien chamber. The air smelled sterile, electric. Through the transparent window, he saw Arinya kneeling on the floor, her hands bound, a ring of glowing energy around her neck. Vorth stood beside her. You wanted to save him, he said mockingly. Now he will save us all. In the way nature intended. Arinya looked up, eyes burning with fury. You'll destroy everything. Vorth's voice was ice. No, child. We will rebuild our world, and this human's body will be the seed. Ethan pulled at the restraints, his muscles straining. You'll have to kill me first. Vorth turned toward him. Oh, human, that's exactly the problem. We can't. The commander's soldiers activated a glowing machine, tall, humming with strange symbols. Energy filled the room, wrapping Ethan in blue light. Arinya screamed, Ethan, don't give up. His voice, weak but steady, answered. I won't. I promise. And as the light swallowed him, one thought burned in his mind. If I'm the key they need, I'll make sure they regret ever turning it. The machine's blue light burned across Ethan's body, making every nerve scream. His vision blurred into streams of color. The alien restraints dug into his wrists like molten steel, yet through the agony he kept his eyes on Arinya. She struggled against her bonds, shouting words he couldn't hear over the pulsing energy. Stop this, she cried. You'll kill him. Commander Vorth stood calmly beside the control console, his silver armor reflecting the light of the chamber. Death is irrelevant, he said coldly. His DNA will live. That is enough. Ethan clenched his teeth. You talk like a machine, he gasped. But you're just a coward, hiding behind your science because you lost your soul. Vorth turned, his glowing eyes narrowing. Soul? He scoffed. That human word means nothing to a dying species. Maybe that's why you're dying, Ethan growled. Vorth stepped closer, curious. And what does a human know of survival? You are fragile, emotional creatures. You break easily. Ethan's lips twisted into a grin despite the pain. Maybe, but we never stop fighting. Then suddenly the lights flickered. Sparks flew from the cables above. Arinya had forced her hands free, blood glowing faintly from her wrists. She tore off the energy collar and shouted, Ethan, close your eyes. A blinding wave of blue light exploded from her palms, throwing Vorth back. The machine short-circuited, the chamber shaking violently. Ethan's chains snapped open. He fell to his knees, gasping for air. Arinya ran to him, kneeling beside his trembling form. Ethan, can you move? He nodded weakly. Yeah. But next time warn me before you turn into a supernova. Despite the chaos, she laughed softly, the sound almost human. They turned toward the exit, but Vorth's voice boomed again through the smoke. You cannot escape destiny. He rose from the debris, armor cracked but glowing hotter than before. You think you can save your kind, Arinya? You are a child playing with gods. Arinya's eyes glowed fiercely. Then it's time the gods remembered what life feels like. Vorth charged. His blade ignited, slicing through the air. Ethan grabbed a fallen plasma rifle and fired, bolts of energy slamming into the commander's armor. It slowed him, but didn't stop him. Ethan, the generator, Arinya shouted. If we destroy it, the control field will collapse. Ethan nodded and sprinted toward the core, a massive sphere pulsing with blue light. Vorth swung his blade toward him, but Arinya intercepted, forming a shield of living energy. The impact cracked the floor beneath them. You will die for this, Vorth roared. Maybe, she said, her voice trembling. But at least it will be for love, not control. Ethan reached the generator. His hand shook as he ripped open a side panel, revealing thousands of glowing tubes. He searched for anything that looked like a weak point. Then he saw it. The stabilizer node. Come on, come on, he muttered, pulling out a small detonator from his belt. Behind him, Arenia screamed as Vorth broke through her shield. Ethan turned just in time to see her thrown across the room. The commander raised his blade again, aimed straight at her heart. No! Ethan shouted. He slammed his hand onto the detonator. The explosion tore through the chamber. Blue fire filled the air. The generator imploded, sending a shockwave that shattered walls and windows. Vorth's armor cracked completely, his scream echoing like thunder before he vanished in a burst of energy. Ethan was thrown backward, hitting the floor hard. The entire facility trembled as alarms blared. Energy surged through the structure, unstable, collapsing. Arenia crawled to his side, coughing. You destroyed it. He smiled weakly. You said your people were slaves to that core. Now they're free. She looked at him, eyes wet. But you'll die if we don't leave. Then go, he whispered. You can still save them. She shook her head fiercely. No, I will not leave you. The roof cracked. Fire and debris rained down. She wrapped her arms around him, her glowing skin forming a cocoon of light. Hold on, she whispered. Everything went white. When the light faded, they were lying in the open desert. The alien facility was a smoking crater behind them. The twin moons hung above, calm and cold. Ethan groaned, opening his eyes. Still alive, he said faintly. That's new. Arenia smiled weakly. You destroyed the core. The sterile code is gone. My people will feel life again. Ethan turned his head toward the horizon where faint lights flickered. Not ships, but something new. Growing forests, flowing rivers. The planet was healing. He looked back at her. So, what now? She reached out, touching his cheek. Now we run again. But this time not to escape. To begin. And for the first time since he'd met her, Ethan didn't feel alone under the alien stars. The air was thick with smoke and the scent of burnt metal. Ethan's ears still rang from the explosion. The ruins of the alien facility glowed faintly behind them, lighting the red desert in ghostly blue hues. Every few seconds, lightning flashed within the crater, unstable energy from the destroyed core. Arenia helped Ethan stand. His clothes were torn, his face streaked with dust and blood, but his eyes still burned with defiance. Are you sure he's gone? Ethan asked, glancing at the horizon. Arenia's glow dimmed. No. Commander Vorth was made through the biocore itself. As long as it breathes, so does he. Ethan frowned. Then we finish it. For good this time. She looked at him, her silver blue hair fluttering in the dry wind. If we destroy what remains of the core, it could trigger a planetary collapse. Ethan gave a tired smile. Guess we better make it count. They followed the crater's edge until they reached a massive fissure leading underground. The walls pulsed faintly like veins under skin. The core wasn't mechanical anymore, it was alive. Its structure had begun to mutate, combining alien metal and organic tissue. Arenia shivered. It's feeding on the energy of this world. My father's experiments went too far. Ethan touched one of the living walls. It pulsed beneath his fingers like a heartbeat. Feels like it's watching us. It is, Arenia whispered. The Queen AI is awake. A deep melodic voice echoed through the cavern, neither human nor alien, but something vast and ancient. You cannot destroy creation, human. You are part of it now. Ethan's head snapped up. Who said that? The air shimmered and a form appeared. A colossal female figure made of light and code, her face beautiful but empty. I am the biocore, she said. I was built to preserve Varea. And you, Ethan Cole, are my final piece. Arenia stepped forward. No, he is not yours to take. The Queen's glowing eyes shifted toward her. You misunderstand, child. His genetic code has already merged with my design. Through him, the next generation will rise, hybrid and eternal. Ethan clenched his fists. You talk about life, but you're nothing but a machine pretending to be God. The Queen smiled faintly. Perhaps. Yet even gods need tools. Suddenly the ground split open. From the walls, glowing tendrils shot out, wrapping around Ethan's arms and legs. He struggled, shouting, Arenia, get back. She ran to him, but another tendril lashed out, striking her across the chest. She fell to the ground, gasping in pain. Her glow flickered weakly, The Queen's voice softened. Do not resist, human, join me. You will become the seed of rebirth. I can grant you immortality, power, purpose. Ethan gritted his teeth, blood trickling from his temple. I already have a purpose. Saving her. With every ounce of strength, he pulled free one arm and grabbed his plasma torch from his belt. He ignited it, the white flame hissing. The tendrils tightened, but he swung hard, slicing through them one by one. Arinya crawled toward a glowing pillar that pulsed like a heart. The Queen's power flows through this nexus, she shouted. Destroy it! Ethan charged forward, cutting through the tendrils. The Queen screamed, her voice shaking the entire chamber. Foolish human! You will end all life. Then I'll end your prison first, Ethan shouted, driving the torch deep into the nexus core. The entire biocore erupted. Light poured from the cracks, blinding and beautiful. The Queen's form fractured into shards of energy, her voice fading into a whisper. You have no idea what you've done. A massive wave of energy exploded outward, knocking both Ethan and Arinya to the ground. The walls began to collapse. Ethan crawled to her side. We have to move. She shook her head weakly. No, it's too late for me. The energy, it's consuming me. He refused to listen. He lifted her into his arms and ran toward the tunnel as the biocore fell apart behind them. Hold on, Arinya. Don't you quit on me now, he shouted. They burst out of the crater just as the ground erupted behind them. A column of blue light shot into the sky, splitting the clouds. The entire desert trembled. Then silence. Ethan collapsed to his knees, cradling Arinya. Her skin was dimming, her breath shallow. You did it, she whispered. The biocore is gone, my people. We'll be free. Ethan shook his head, his voice breaking. We did it. You and me. She smiled faintly, reaching up to touch his face. Now, our worlds are one. Her hand fell limp. The faint glow around her body began to fade but not vanish. Instead, it flowed into the ground, spreading like veins of light across the sand. Ethan looked up as the twin moons brightened. The once dead planet shimmered with color, rivers of blue light spreading from the crater, bringing life where there had been none. But Ethan's vision was fading. His body shook violently, his own veins glowing faintly blue. The Queen's words echoed faintly in his mind. You have no idea what you've done. Then everything went dark. The first light of dawn broke over the red dunes of Varian 9, painting the sky in gold and violet. The air that once stank of dust now shimmered with a faint sweetness, the scent of life. Strange green vines curled up from cracks in the sand, glowing faintly, as if the planet itself had drawn a long breath after centuries of silence. Arinya stirred. For a moment, she thought she was still inside the biocore, trapped in its dream of light and pain. But then she felt the warmth of real sunlight on her face. She sat up slowly, her body weak but alive. The wind brushed her silver hair across her eyes. Ethan? She whispered, looking around. He was lying nearby, motionless, half buried in fine dust. His skin was pale, his veins faintly glowing blue. For one heart-stopping moment, she thought he was gone. She crawled to him, trembling, her hands shaking as she touched his chest. A heartbeat, faint but there. Her tears fell freely. You foolish human. You saved us all and you almost let yourself die. She lifted his head gently onto her lap. Around them, the desert shifted. The lifeless red soil turning gray, then green as small blades of alien grass began to grow. Streams of blue light ran through the sand like veins of water. The planet was healing. From the horizon, ships appeared. Not warships, but slender silver vessels gliding peacefully. Her people had come. But they were changed. Their ships no longer glowed with the cold blue of control, but with a soft golden pulse. The old code was gone. Arinya's eyes filled with awe. Ethan, your blood joined with ours. The world accepted it. You gave us back what we lost. Behind her, a gentle voice spoke. And he gave you more than that. She turned sharply. A projection flickered nearby. The fading image of the Queen AI, broken and translucent. But her voice was no longer cold. Arinya frowned. You should be gone. I am. What remains is only an echo. The human changed my core. He gave me empathy. A virus of the heart. Arinya held Ethan closer. Then let him live. If you have any mercy, let him live. He already does, the Queen whispered. Look, Ethan's body began to glow faintly. The blue veins slowly dimmed and turned normal again. His breathing steadied. His fingers twitched. Arinya gasped as his eyes opened. human brown mixed with faint alien silver. He blinked, confused. Did we win? Arenia laughed through her tears. You destroyed the biocore, Ethan. You broke the curse. He smiled weakly. Guess that's one way to make a first impression on your planet. She pressed her forehead against his, whispering, You're part of it now. Your DNA runs through the new life. You'll never be forgotten. He looked around. The blooming desert, the gentle hum of the new world, the light of two suns rising together. Looks like your people got their new beginning. Arenia's expression softened. Our people, she corrected. In the distance, Virion survivors began to land, stepping carefully onto the reborn soil. They bowed when they saw Arenia, not as a runaway princess, but as the one who had restored life. Ethan tried to stand, but she helped him up slowly. Together, they watched the light spread across the horizon. What will you tell them? He asked quietly. The truth, she said. That a human taught us what it means to live, not just to survive. He looked at her with a faint smile. That's a nice story. Might even make a good legend. She smiled back, her eyes shimmering. It already is one. A small sound interrupted them, soft and delicate. Arenia looked down, startled. In the sand near them, a glowing seed had cracked open, revealing a tiny infant creature, half human, half Varian, its skin pale with faint blue veins and tiny brown eyes that blinked curiously at the light. Ethan stared, speechless. Is that? Arenia nodded, tears filling her eyes. The first of the new generation. She gently picked up the baby and held it close. Its warmth pulsed against her heart like the rhythm of two worlds beating together. Ethan looked at her. This radiant being who had once crashed into his lonely life, and felt something he couldn't name. Awe, peace, love. The wind whispered across the dunes. Above them the stars faded into the dawn. Arenia whispered softly, Your kind gave us hope, and for that, we will never forget you. Ethan smiled faintly, watching the horizon. Then promise me one thing. What? Don't let this world repeat our mistakes. Protect it. Protect life, she nodded, her voice steady. I promise. As the sun rose higher, the desert shimmered, no longer dead but alive. Two figures stood together at its heart. One human, one alien, and between them the beginning of a new universe. Final message. Sometimes, love is not born from similarity, but from sacrifice. When one soul dares to understand another, even across stars, life begins again. The end.